Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Thursday. It is the 30th of the month. Only one more day for March, the trading month, and one more day for the quarter. That's it. So it'll be interesting in terms of what kind of day we're going to get tomorrow for the end of quarter. Maybe a little bit more volatility. Today kind of felt like some whippiness that happened in the market today, as well as a little bit of gapping up as well today, and a trickier day to kind of trade. So I'll discuss that in just a minute. I have our website in front of you. This is where you can go to basically check out kind of what we're doing, as well as be a member of Tribeca Trade Group. You could kind of see our methodology on here if you haven't visited Tribeca Trade Group before. I will put out my March performance. I do that every month on Twitter. I've had a pretty good month. I hope you have done the same. We've been, trading, or at least I've been trading a pretty disciplined strategy in March. I think, the first half of the month, and I'll review this, by the way, for members every month. I do put out a P&L recap of what worked, what didn't work, what some of the bigger winners were, what some of the losers were. Yes, I discussed the losers as well. I have them every month. My goal every month is to kind of keep losers small, more paper cut type losers, and maximize on some of the winners. But for the year, we'll see. We have one more day of the month, but I should be up somewhere around 12% year to date, somewhere in that area, provided anything that happens tomorrow. But I did try to be responsible, given that we have a quarter end for tomorrow. So risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. Please read that full risk disclaimer there. But yes, themes of the day, as I alluded to, second day in a row for a gap up. That makes things tricky if you're looking to add exposure. If you already have exposure or swing, if you're doing some swing trading, which I do a good deal of, I tend to try to take profits in the beginning of the day when we have a gap up, and then kind of let things settle in, right? And then go from there. Of course, that's easier said than done, especially with the way that this market has been going. Some names do take off on the open. Some names kind of give things back. But again, it's a bit trickier. Nevertheless, it does feel like more of a normal market. That is generally the case. If you look at over time, the market does do, like, if you've done this trade, or if you thought about this trade over time, but if you go back to like the last 20 years, if you buy the close and sell the open, right, that is a huge winning trade over years. Maybe not in the last year so much, but over on average, that is much better than trying to buy the open and sell the close. Now, of course, day traders can do a whole bunch of different strategies during the day, but on average, buying the close, I know that's very counterintuitive, but you can Google this, and you'll find different studies on this, and the performance is far and away much better if on average, if you buy the close and sell the open, right? Just kind of crazy, but the last couple of days have felt like that. Interesting with that. If you look at the performance, the VIX, I don't really understand why the VIX was moving the way it did earlier today. It just kept on rising. Perhaps that the market was moving pretty quickly to the upside. Remember that volatility can work both ways. It's not frequent that it does that, but and sometimes it is a kind of contrarian sell signal. When the VIX goes up, and during an up market, remember, normally volatility increases when the market falls, because the market generally falls faster than it goes up, right? But every once in a while, you will see the VIX increase too, or volatility pick up when the market goes up. But regardless, I think we almost hit 21 in the VIX, because we can bring that chart up. Not that I really, look at the chart in intraday, but you could see here on this candle for the day, we got, sorry, maybe that's 20, maybe it wasn't 21. If the VIX hit, I guess hit 20. For some reason, I thought it hit 21, but I guess I'm mistaken there. Yeah, it just hit 20, and then right around midday, right? Oops, right around midday, we started to see this kind of move down, and then really around like 1 o'clock into like the 2 o'clock hour. So this completely, gave back this whole move. Sorry, I don't know why I can't center this, but and nevertheless, I thought that was an interesting move. Regardless, the VIX is still staying at a very low level comparatively to where it's been over the last couple of months. We're at a 19 right now. All right, so that was one of the themes that I thought for the day. So you've got this outperformance by the Qs. I thought we would just go over the S&P chart, daily chart really quickly. All right, let's see if we can center this a little bit better. So yes, we're getting, I don't know, think or swim seems to want to jump around like this from time to time, but we're basically back to where we were in the beginning of the month, right? So maybe we're getting out of this pattern of lower highs, right? Since we made this high back on February 1st in the S&P, right? And that virgin point of control was taken out, right? We made a little bit of a lower high here, lower high here, lower high here. So we're kind of coming around here, right, and trying to get out of that pattern. Also, one of the things like from my morning commentary that I mentioned was, very interesting. Just a couple, how quickly a couple days can change the picture. Just about 2-3 days ago, right, we were underneath the 200-day moving average, the 50-day moving average, and right at some of those short-term moving averages. 2 days later, we're back above all those moving averages. So again, this market can change very quickly, but this has been a nice move. We've got one more day, so that is the resistance 40.98 for the month. And then we're going to move over to April. So it's possible that we start the month above the value area, which could be a more favorable setup. This month, March, we did start the month below value. And if you look at where we started, it looks like right now we're positive for the month, but all types of back and forth action this month. Of course, so again, we'll talk more about that probably in our member webinar early next week. The Qs, like I said, have held up very well. Look, we just about took out this virgin point of control on the daily chart. I mean, so very impressive move. After, remember a couple of weeks ago, we made this really nice move from the 200-day moving average, and then we bounced around, hesitated for a little while, and then we're resolving higher. So we're going to have to see. I think this is a big level, 316.36. You may want to be a seller into this. Now, that's kind of difficult because for the first time in a while, we are seeing the NYSE get better, right? We've seen breadth get better overall. So generally, I want to be with the trend, as breadth, I've been waiting for this. I think a lot of traders have been waiting for the NYSE McClellan summation index to basically cross over with a moving average, whether you use the 5, 10, whatever. I use the 10. By the way, this is not updated yet for today, but I would think that you're going to see a crossover with the 10-day moving average. So this is going to be interesting. So what happens here at this virgin point of control takeout? Yes, I'm a little bit worried about. Again, take a look at the S&P when we took this virgin point of control out. So it'll be important if we do take this out and we start to kind of come back in and digest. It's important, I think, for us to kind of stay in this range, right? There's no problem with backing and filling and maybe staying above the 20-day moving average, but usually we tend to see some digestion at least after a virgin point of control takeout. A couple examples that I've been showing of this, right? For example, Bitcoin. So here's a good example. Right, this thing rose up and took out the virgin point of control, and it's kind of been holding in here. Now it returned back to it, but hasn't been able to get back above. Right, another one that I've made reference to lately is gold. Right, gold took out this virgin point of control. Now it's also doing a decent job at holding after taking out a level. And again, if you're not familiar with virgin point of controls, it's where a lot of buyers and sellers previously met up, but they haven't returned back to, right? So once you return back to it, it kind of works as overhead supply. And the question is, can you get through that overhead supply, right? So you just kind of have to monitor, right? And watch the dynamics going forward. IWM, this is one of the themes of the day. started the day up the most out of all the indices, was up about 1%, and gave it back. Got rejected at the 20-day moving average. And one positive here is that it held above the value area for the week. That level to watch is 175 for the week there in the small cap ETF. All right. But again, the concern, again, whenever you kind of see that volatility, you kind of think, hey, maybe something is going on here, because in the banks, because they are the biggest weight in the small caps. And again, we're just seeing that this is very unloved, the regional banks right now. We continue to see put buying, right? I mentioned, I think yesterday, that we started to see a little bit of call activity, some put selling in Schwab. But, again, it doesn't mean that they're always going to be right. Schwab was down 5% today. And I did put on a bullish trade. I put on a call spread, and I have plenty of time on that trade. It expires in June. But, that was the first stab I've taken at going long one of these banks or, financials on the move down. But, this got hit on the Morgan Stanley downgrade today. Kind of late of Morgan Stanley to be doing that, but it is what it is. Sometimes these broker upgrades, downgrades are not the best timing. But regardless, I think this will continue to be a must watch. What did we see? We saw some puts today in EUFN. Right, so European financials. I actually took this trade. I went short here. If you look at the European financials, which went all the way down to about 17. This is EUFN, by the way. This rallied up to the top of value on the weekly chart. Again, we have one more day left of the week, but 1865 would be a level to short against if you want to play that game. And I did decide to put that on because I generally am operating more of a long book. So if I can find something that kind of fits, I think that's good protection. We also saw the other day puts in Barclays, BCS, which is also in that European area. So, that's how I feel a little bit better about holding some long risk right now in this market. I think another California bank that we saw puts in, it was EWBC. I think that's the symbol. East West Bancorp. I've never traded this stock before, but, heavy put buying in this thing today. Again, so you kind of have to worry, California banks, European banks, not a place where I would really be wanting to put money to work at this point until things are on more of a solid footing, I would say. A couple other themes for the day that we saw. So Qs remain strong. We went over that chart. Gold also remains strong. And, I was looking for opportunities today in some of the beaten up, more beaten up areas like the steel names. Now, I did not trade anything in this group, but Steel Dynamics is starting to kind of move to the upside. Cliff Resources has been seeing some call activity. Again, I didn't take either one of these trades. I had an old alert go off on this company, Encore Wire, right? They make copper wires and so forth. I like the fact that they pulled back. And I really like this weekly chart, right? So they pulled back after earnings, right? You can kind of see this big breakout, right? Name went all the way up to 206, pulling back to 180. So I gave this a shot. Again, can't really put on a big position here. It's not the most liquid name, but I like having some exposure to some of these areas that have pulled back instead of just, I know right now everybody's concentrated on high growth. That has worked really well, but you have to be cognizant that it may not be all that group, right? The semis are acting really well, right? But eventually, like we saw earlier this week, you're going to see some profit taking. Rambus, it's funny because I put this chart out today, and I had a couple people tell me, geez, I haven't heard this name in so long. And to me, that's a head scratcher because this has been a huge outperformer over the last 6 months. And I've certainly tweeted about it quite a bit. It's acted really well. It's gone from 24 to $50. So I don't know if you haven't heard about this company in the last few months, then I would say maybe think about being a member of the Tribeca Trade Group, because this is the kind of stuff that we go over, things that are acting really well. We're all about relative strength and finding, areas that are doing better than the overall market. So really kind of interesting there to see this move, this breakout. Now, I don't have a position in this one. I do have positions in other semiconductors. Speaking of which, I took another target in NVIDIA, right? If you've been a regular viewer of my videos, you know I mentioned this one in just about every video of the last couple of weeks, just letting you know what I'm up to. My price target is 300. I took another target, right where my system, the market webs are telling me to do so, right at the top of value. So I trimmed down my position. Again, I'm still holding for ultimately 300, but I don't think that we get there necessarily in a straight line. So like I did last time, I took profits last week into this, and I've re-added at the bottom of value. So again, taking profits here and keeping on a slim position. Right, you can't get hurt that way. And I have my trailing stop at back at the bottom of value for the week, which is right around 261. All right, that's how I've been kind of playing this. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, pretty darn disciplined. I traded Crocs today. I'm being very, like I said, also in the beginning of the video, I'm being disciplined here. I like this move here, right? This name is kind of waking up. It got a nice broker upgrade. You can use the 50-day moving average now as your stop, right? So I'll be watching this one tomorrow. But again, I'm just practicing a lot of discipline, taking some trades off that I put on. This was actually quite nice today, because if you look at what I did today, I put on a starter, 122.5. I took a quick target in this thing, and I said I can always add it back if the market cools, like we saw, like we see from time to time. And yesterday we did for a little bit. So I added that right back at 122.5, and then just played this game, buying low, selling high, right? That's kind of sometimes how it works. And here you go, right? And then I did take this trade off at the end of the day. All right, here's my EUFN trade, and IoT was another trade that you've had to be patient with this one, which is not easy to do in this market. But again, let me just refresh Thinkorswim. All right, so I took a target where, again, my system is telling me to take a short-term target, right at this 1933 VPOC, right? And now we'll see if it can continue to kind of move a bit higher here, right? So this is nice, getting back above these moving averages, and hopefully it can kind of get back up here. Speaking of virgin point of controls, which we went over, here was a good one too, right at 2086. Right, so I'm still in this, but I took my first target in this today. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to keep it kind of short because we've got a big day tomorrow with quadruple witching, and also the PCE deflator that we've got coming out at 8:30. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.